Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank you all for being here in this format. And as I open, this is a sequel that no one asked for. The hearing 2 years ago, I don't know that much was learned. We're going to have a similar issue set, but modified by the political discourse of the day. And so, I think of this as an opportunity for me to ask you important questions about your insight into the economy. We know that through the financial crisis, the banking sector it provided important liquidity and played its role in our economy to ensure that that lending was possible, that smart underwriting and lending was still possible in the midst of a pandemic. So I think that is commendable work that your institutions and banks and fintechs and credit unions put in during the financial crisis. The question I have for the whole panel is to have the outlook on jobs going forward. We had 8 million unfilled jobs last month. 8 million unfilled jobs. We had 266,000 net increase in employment, but 8 million jobs unfilled. There's a lot of debate in Washington about why that's happening. I'd like to hear from you as experts on the economy about the nature of that. So if we can begin with you, Mr. Scharf, and then you, Mr. Moynihan.
Congressman, I'm not sure I have a great answer as to why it's the case. What I can tell you is what we hear from our clients and what we see ourselves. And what we see from our clients is that their confidence is building, and they feel very, very good about the prospects for the second half of the year. Debt levels are down on a corporate basis.
But how can you have economic growth if you can't get people to go back to work? That's the fundamental question. Let me move on to you, Mr. Moynihan. Same question.
Our small business customers, we just completed a survey, and that the issue raised has come up to the highest level of all the issues. It was a pandemic, obviously, 6 months ago, and now it's turned to getting workers for the jobs. I think it's a serious concern, and I think that the states and others I talk to are trying to put money to work to train people, and I agree with you. It's if you think forward about the risk of the economy, it's the inability to get stuff in through the ports, and it's the ability to get people to work back to work in a fashion now that the economy is opening up.
Ms. Fraser and Mr. Diamond.
Yes, I think we're seeing significant dislocations as the economy normalizes. One of the pieces that will be critical is as the savings go back to work and as liquidity that is sitting out there at the moment gets translated into ways that create more employment and new business creation to drive the recovery.
Mr.
I think, Ranking Member, I think the reasons are manyfold, including some of the unemployment insurance, including the fact that our schools haven't reopened up, and including the fact that people actually have a lot of money and they don't particularly feel like going back to work. But I think you should rest assured, I think we're going to see a completely booming economy, a lot of people going back to work, and hopefully it will continue for quite a while.
Well, thank you. Thank you for answering that. Now I've got questions about on the international front. We see a lack of transparency associated with China's lending across the globe. China's resisted international standards set by bodies such as the Paris Club and the OECD arrangement on officially supported export credits. We see this globally. Moreover, we see the Federal Reserve has flagged elevated debt levels in China, high real estate valuations, and weaknesses in their financial sector. And what I see is a lack of transparency in their lending and a lack of transparency internationally to their domestic actions. Can you give me further insight into this, and how can how should we believe China? And do you believe that China's lack of transparency and its official financial sector vulnerabilities pose a potential risk to global financial stability? Mr. Solomon, that question is for you. Then to you, Mr. Diamond.
I appreciate the question, Ranking Member McHenry, and I think you phrased a bunch of issues that are issues that we spend a lot of time thinking about. Transparency in markets is always extremely important, and more transparency is better. I think that we understand that we operate in very globally interconnected markets, so the degree that some of the issues you highlight do become issues that have an impact on China's economic activity, we'll certainly feel it back here in the United States, and it can have a contagion effect. I don't see that at the moment as a likely issue, given the recovery they've had coming out of their pandemic. But I think all these things are things that should be watched and observed closely.
The
Well,
gentleman's
Mr.
time has
Diamond, I think you were
expired.
saved by the bell, and thank you all for testifying.